So, some interesting wrestling news coming out in the past few days. Um, it's kind of weird to even think about this, but recently we had AEW Forbidden Door, and one of the featured matches was a title for title match between Mercedes Moné, aka or FKA, Sasha Banks, and she was facing Stephanie Vaquer or Vaquer. It's a Vaquer or something like that. I think that's her name. But Stephanie Vaquer, who historically had a tryout with WWE when they were on an international tour back in 2018, but didn't get the chance to be signed. So she had been wrestling for the past 6 years, if not the past decade, down in Mexico. She's from Chile, but she's been, and I do apologize for that notification vibration you heard. But anyway, like I said, she had been wrestling in Mexico and in Japan, for CMLL, New Japan, I think even briefly AAA. She had been, wrestling for them, and she had won championship gold in all the places I think she's been at, mostly CMLL and New Japan. As a matter of fact, like I said, the match she had with Mercedes was title for title. It was the TBS championship that Mercedes had versus the New Japan Strong Women's title that Stephanie had. And originally, that championship was meant to go to Mercedes, but because she got injured in the finals to crown the inaugural champion against Willow Nightingale, that never happened. But now Mercedes has that title. But anyway, Vancouver came in and faced her. But Vancouver had that championship. She had the CMLL Women's World Championship, women's tag titles. And basically what happened is she lost. She had a great match, great showing against Mercedes at Forbidden Door, according to a lot of people, but she lost. And then, not even a week later, or just barely over a week later, it gets announced that, and you can find this on Shawn Michaels' Twitter page, she is now part of WWE. And people are wondering, okay, what happened? Because normally, a lot of talent that, takes part in these kind of matches or even has one or two matches with AEW before Forbidden Door, and even while they're working with, the other companies they're champions for, normally when the opportunity presents itself, they end up signing with AEW. Well, there are certain situations that are very, very complicated, if you will, when it comes to Vacure's situation. Long story short, apparently she had a boyfriend she was dating back in 2014 when she started her career down south in Mexico and in Japan, who physically abused her, tried to choke her, basically kill her, and basically he got put in jail for that, and he's still in jail apparently. But it sounds like he's close to getting out. We're not really sure. Anyway, there's a lot of people that sided with her, took her side over this, but there were also others that took her ex-boyfriend's side, and one of them was was Dragon Dragolisto, I can't pronounce his name right, and Roosh, both who are part of AEW, mostly Roosh, who's signed to AEW. And basically because of that, and knowing that they would have to share locker rooms, Vancouver made the right decision, in a lot of people's minds, because obviously you could tell Tony wanting to put that match together wasn't just because he wanted to allow Mercedes to creatively book herself into winning, because Mercedes has creative control, which a lot of people, they hear that and they're like, are you out of your mind? Have you not learned anything from history? You do not give anybody, no matter how established of a star they are, multimedia or not, you do not give them creative control. But apparently, that's what he did. And people assume that because she may have creatively booked herself to win over Vancouver at Forbidden Door, That basically was one of the reasons she decided to sign with WWE, but it could be because of that other reason that I mentioned as well, because of the connection, the support that Ruth gives her ex-boyfriend who tried to basically, take her out. So she signed a little over less than a week later with WWE, which is a big shock to a lot of people because now, within the span of just a few months, WWE has locked in Julia, who's been known for her time in New Japan and Stardom and other places like CMLL and AAA, I think. They've locked in Julia, who also was the New Japan Strong Women's Champion and the Stardom's Women's Champion. Well, she wasn't the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. I think she did compete for New Japan Strong as well as for New Japan. And I think she won the women's championship there at one point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she was basically, a big star for Stardom in New Japan. And now she's going to be part of WWE and Marigold and all that. So basically within the span, and this is what why people say WWE is on a hot streak right now, because within the span of a few months, they have signed Julia, who's a top name in Japan. They have now signed Stephanie Vaquer, who's a top name in Mexico and Japan. And it sounds like because she's kind of realigned, her contract to expire a lot sooner than it should, by the beginning of 2025, they will have Jordynne Grace. They will have Jordynne Grace, who's the current TNA Knockouts champion. And it sounds like they probably are on the verge, if not have already signed Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, the Motor City Machine Guns, to contracts. We're not totally sure yet. And again, three out of these four names, all at one point, people thought were AEW bound. And mostly, Vancouver being the biggest shocker because it's like, again, Tony Khan, when he brings these people in and does these kind of stuff, does these Forbidden Door-like events, it usually leads to a talent, that represents New Japan or CMLL or AAA, usually leads to that talent potentially signing, if more than likely signing with All Elite Wrestling. But that's not the case here because of, like I said earlier, the situation with Rush supporting the guy that tried to hurt her and is not take her out permanently and so on. But what this also tells me too is, you would think it would be a slam dunk. You would think, okay, they've obviously learned a lesson from the whole Punk Bucks situation and all that, and they would, do what they could to keep Vancouver and Rush as far away from each other as they could. On certain shows like Dynamite, and on certain shows and episodes like of Dynamite and Collision and all that, you think they'd be able to work that out, make learn from their mistakes, but obviously, I'm assuming, Vancouver probably didn't want to take a chance and everything, and I'm assuming some people within AEW probably told her, hey, you'd be better off signing with WWE than coming here because, you might bump into the, certain individuals that side with your boyfriend and everything and are against you. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But what this also tells me too is, if you have someone like Vancouver that just wrestled on your pay-per-view about a little over a week ago and is on the verge, potentially by Great American Bash, debuting alongside Julia, in WWE's NXT, and then probably by next year on the main roster, what that tells me is Tony Khan's got an issue on his hands here, and that issue is giving creative control to Mercedes Moné. You do not give creative control to someone like her, knowing that she, if she feels like it, she's not going to want to go along with any plans to put anybody else over. That she's going to be the one wanting to put herself over. And a lot of people seeing this, like I mentioned earlier, would think, Tony Khan, being a fan of the business, would learn from past mistakes, because we all saw what happened when creative control was given to Hulk Hogan and certain other individuals in WCW. If certain things didn't go the way they were hoping for, they would change their minds. Or if they did agree, hey, I'll do this, but then all of a sudden, 24 hours later, decide, you know what, I've changed my mind, I'm not going to do it, let's do this. That doesn't work out in the end for anybody. That doesn't make, that does not make a pleasantly good working environment, period. So And also what it does it alienates any potential signings you could have to your company, after an event like Forbidden Door. So again, if I'm Tony Khan, and I'm seeing this, I'm hearing this, you know, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing this. I basically I might have to, get with my lawyers, get with my team, that my team of representatives and lawyers and whatever, and meet with Mercedes and her team and restructure that contract of hers to where that creative control is only utilized when it's necessary, not when she wants it to be utilized, but when it's necessary, or just take it out completely. Because he's going to lose out on opportunity, to opportunity after opportunity, I should say, to sign certain talents to contract for that women's division. I mean, we already know that he's got a situation on his hands to where people love Britt Baker. People love her, and they know we got this matchup lined up for All In towards the end of August. But it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for a finish? Are you just going to have Mercedes beat her? Or are you going to have them go to a draw? Are you going to have an upset win, a disqualification? What are you going to do? Because if you decide to go to her and say, hey, we want to put Britt back up, we want to put Britt over, and she's going to win the TBS title, the one title she's never won, is Mercedes, is she going to do a Hulk Hogan, as some people would put it? Is she going to at first agree and say, okay, fine, no problem. But then all of a sudden, 72 hours later, is she going to come out and say, no, I changed my mind. I don't want to put her over. I want her to put me over. Is that going to happen? We don't know. But to me, when I hear news like this, it is shocking. It is shocking. I wouldn't say it's shocking along the lines of, we didn't, like, for example, if I was to use a moment in AEW, as an example, I would say that I would say that it's kind of, but not totally on the levels of when Malachi Black made his debut. Because the last time people saw Malachi was in WWE. They didn't think anything was wrong. And then all of a sudden, within a week or two after his appearance in WWE, he shows up in AEW. What happened? It's like it blew people's mind because they still thought he was in the contract. WWE thought, obviously, he was still, on the same side of them. But, but that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. And, I wouldn't say it's on kind of that level, but I would assume it's kind of close to it, because you can't tell me Tony Khan probably didn't think, oh, I have Stephanie Vaquer. I have Stephanie Vaquer locked up. I just had her compete at Forbidden Door. She lost her title to Mercedes, but she's still part of CMLL. I have her locked up. I'm going to make her all elite. And what happened? What happened? Like I said, less than 9 days later, less than a little over a week later, she's with WWE. And that kind of, to me, is a message being sent that, maybe he shouldn't have given creative control to Mercedes. Now, I'm not totally saying that that's, what, was, I'm not trying to totally say that's the reason, but a lot of people are pointing towards, hey, that might have been, a huge instrument that played, played a major part in that happening. So you never know. You never know. But yeah, Stephanie Vaquer, is part of, WWE now. And hopefully this does send a message to Tony Khan that maybe he needs to not do this kind of stuff, and maybe he needs to restructure Mercedes' contract. If he doesn't want to lose any more potential talent to the opposition, especially talent that he just gave the spotlight to on one of his major pay-per-views that he always gloats about as being one of the bigger pay-per-views of the year. And you can't tell me that he's not hearing about the Machine Guns potentially signing with WWE and being part of that, be part of that company and that tag roster, that tag division, and being part of AEW, where they made, one or two appearances with the company. You can't tell me that's not getting to him as well, knowing that, hey, I thought I had these guys locked up. But now with WWE having a better partnership with TNA Impact Wrestling than AEW did, that to me is kind of like that to me is kind of like the final key, the final nail in the coffin to lure the MCMG of Shelley and Sabin over to WWE. And you got to think about it this way too. They're going to be, well, they're not going to be in Detroit, but they're going to be in Cleveland. So maybe you might get something there. That could be a big debut, and for them, at Cleveland Brown Stadium. But you don't know. We don't know. But again, this is just something that I think Tony Khan needs to really pay attention to and really take into consideration. And that is, if you want to try to have an opportunity to sign somebody to your company that you just recently had on your show, or people you've had on your show previously, maybe you need to reconsider how you book the show and how you treat others. Because you can't tell me that Sabin and Shelley, you can't tell me they're not, because they've been TNA, originals for a long time. Let's be honest. Shelley may have appeared in WWE NXT a few times. He might be champion, in places like Wrestling Revolver and stuff, but you can't tell me that, being mostly TNA homegrown originals, that, they're not pissed off at how AEW, how Tony Khan mistreated TNA Impact Wrestling. Because to me, that might be what lures them to want to sign with WWE, and seeing how equal and how more fairer that partnership is compared to what they have with AEW. So again, Tony Khan hopefully teaches him a lesson of, hey, treat others respectfully. Don't, just use them for your own gain, and maybe not give people like a Mercedes, despite how good she is in the ring, despite her reputation and what she's known for. Maybe it's not a good idea to give them creative control, because that could alienate, potential signees, for your women's division. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below. Check out my Teespring store. Link is in the description to that, as well as links to where you can find my content elsewhere, podcast-wise and everything. Also, check out my Patreon. Also, the link is there as well. Like the video. Subscribe if you can. Subscribe if you want. It really helps me out. Both liking and subscribing. But give me your thoughts. What do you think, your thoughts on this whole situation? And until then, I'll talk to you later.